3 weeks ago, Logan, an outdoorsy type with a taste for solitude, rented the cabin off a shady listing he found online. It was cheap. Too cheap. $100 for the entire month. The listing had no reviews, just a few grainy photos and a location pin buried deep in the Appalachian forest. Perfect for what he needed. Isolation. No phone signal, no internet. Just him, a fire, and silence. The first 2 nights were peaceful. Logan hiked, chopped wood, and watched the snow roll in. But on the 3rd night, something changed. It started with a noise. He was reading by lantern light when he heard it. A soft thump on the roof. Then another. Then a dragging sound, like something was pulling itself across the wooden shingles. He froze, eyes locked on the ceiling. Thump, then silence. He chalked it up to snow falling, or maybe a raccoon. But as he went to bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had watched him through the trees that day. Something tall, pale, just out of view. He didn't see it, but he felt it. That crawling chill in your bones when you know you're not alone. The next morning, he found footprints in the snow. Not his own, not boots, bare feet, long misshapen toes with a deep, dragging line between them, like something was limping. They circled the cabin. No animal did that. That night, the noises came back. It was after midnight when he heard scratching. Not outside, inside, behind the walls, like claws dragging through the wood. Then something whispered his name. Faint, distant, like wind through a crack. Logan! He spun, lantern raised, heart pounding. No one. Nothing. He barely slept. Every creak in the wood, every groan of the trees made his chest tighten. He started locking every door, every window, pushing furniture in front of the door. But locks don't help when it's already inside. On the 5th night, Logan set up a camera. Just his phone, propped on a chair, aimed at the front door. He wanted proof. Evidence. Something to explain the whispers and the shadows he swore he saw moving in the corners of his vision. In the morning, he checked the footage. At 3:17 a.m., the door creaked open. Slowly, silently. The wind didn't blow it open. Something opened it. And then, the camera glitched. When the video cleared, there it was. A figure. Tall, bone white, naked and thin like a starved corpse. Its face was wrong, a mouth too wide, open in a frozen scream, but no eyes, just sunken holes. It stood motionless in the doorway for over 2 minutes, then crawled across the floor, head twitching, joints cracking in reverse angles until it disappeared behind the camera. Logan dropped the phone. He didn't even pack, just grabbed his keys and ran. But when he got to his truck, every window was shattered from the inside. The seats were soaked with something thick and dark, something that smelled like rot and copper. He ran back to the cabin to call for help, but of course, no signal. That's when the knocking started. Slow, deliberate, from inside the walls. Knock, knock, knock. Then the voice again, whispering, closer this time. Logan! He backed into a corner, clutching the fire poker like it would save him. And then he saw it. The trapdoor in the floor, the one he thought was just an old root cellar, was open. A hand reached up, long white fingers with black nails, scrabbling against the floorboards. And from below came a sound that haunts me to this day. A laugh. High-pitched, human and not, like a child mimicking joy, but getting it all wrong. Logan ran into the woods. No jacket, no shoes. He was found the next morning, barefoot, covered in scratches, muttering nonsense in a gas station bathroom 10 miles away. They never found the cabin. He led rangers to where he thought it was, but there was nothing, no structure, no clearing, not even tire tracks, just endless trees. But Logan's phone, still had the footage. And if you watch it frame by frame, you'll see something else. In the last second before it ends, before the glitch swallows the screen, you can see it. Behind the creature, standing in the corner. Another one, smiling. But that's not where the story ends. 3 nights ago, Logan went missing. Again, he told his sister he was hearing the whispers, said he'd started seeing bare footprints outside his apartment on the concrete, dragging lines, scratches on the drywall, laughing behind the vents. They found his apartment door open, lights off, no sign of struggle, except one thing, the phone, recording. 3:17 a.m., same glitch, same shape, crawling in. But this time, it looks at the camera, right at it, and it smiles. The house on Elm Street had been abandoned for years. No one in the small town ever talked about it. The windows were always covered with thick, grimy curtains, and the lawn grew wild, the grass choking the edges of the cracked sidewalk. But when Julia, a young college student desperate for a cheap place to stay, found the listing online, it seemed perfect. The rent was unbelievably low, too low, but she was drawn to it. Maybe it was the isolation, maybe it was the thrill of the unknown. She didn't believe the rumors the locals whispered. They were just stories, ghost tales spun by bored minds. Or so she thought. The house was everything Julia expected, creaky, dusty, and strangely cold. But it was spacious, with high ceilings and beautiful old hardwood floors. The faint smell of mildew filled the air, but it was nothing she couldn't deal with. She signed the lease and began to move in, settling into a room on the second floor. On her first night, Julia noticed something strange. The house seemed to have a strange, unsettling rhythm. Every few minutes, the floorboards would creak in the hallway, like someone walking by. Soft footsteps, but no one was there. She shook it off as the house settling, but then she heard the whispers. At first, they were faint. A soft mumble from behind the walls, just out of reach. Julia woke in the middle of the night to hear it again, closer this time. The voice was low and guttural, as if it had been scratching at the walls for centuries. "Help me," it whispered. The next day, Julia tried to ignore it, telling herself it was just her imagination. But as the nights went on, the whispers grew louder. Sometimes she could hear them even during the day, seeping through the cracks of the old walls. She decided to investigate. The basement door was locked, but the old key she found in the kitchen drawer fit perfectly. She hesitated, but curiosity got the best of her. She descended the creaky wooden stairs, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread pressed down on her chest. The air was thick and cold, the smell of rot and decay growing stronger the further she went. At the bottom of the stairs, the basement stretched out before her, dark, almost suffocating. The walls were lined with old furniture covered in dust, and in the far corner she saw a faint glow. As her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she could make out a figure crouched in the shadows. It was a creature. At first, Julia thought it was a person, hunched over, its back twisted at an unnatural angle. But then it turned, revealing its face, or what used to be a face. Its eyes were hollow, dark voids, and its mouth stretched unnaturally wide, twisted into a permanent, gaping grin. The creature's skin was pale, mottled with patches of bruised, rotting flesh. Its fingers were long and crooked, like claws, and they scraped against the floor as it moved toward her. She froze, unable to look away as it whispered, its voice like a dry rasp. "Let me out." Suddenly, Julia stumbled backward, tripping over a pile of old boxes. The creature's grin widened, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. It screeched, the sound echoing through the basement. It It crawled forward with unnatural speed, its limbs twitching and jerking at odd angles. But before it could reach her, the basement door slammed shut with a deafening thud. Julia, heart racing, scrambled up the stairs and locked the door behind her. Her hands trembled as she leaned against the door, gasping for air. She knew she couldn't stay another night in that house. It was clear the creature was no figment of her imagination, no whisper of superstition. She grabbed her bags and rushed outside, her eyes darting to the windows of the house. As she looked up at the second-floor window, she saw it. The creature's pale face was pressed against the glass, its hollow eyes staring directly at her, smiling. Julia never returned to the house. But months later, when a new tenant moved in, the whispers began again. And the creature, still trapped in the walls, was waiting for someone to let it out. Adrian had always been drawn to old things, antique books, weathered furniture, relics of the past. When he stumbled upon an ad for a mansion on the outskirts of town, he couldn't resist. The house was grand, a sprawling estate tucked away at the edge of a dense forest. It was dirt cheap, far too inexpensive for its size and beauty. The listing claimed it had been abandoned for years, its previous owner having mysteriously disappeared. Adrian saw it as an opportunity to escape his busy life in the city and reconnect with the peace of solitude. He arrived at the mansion on a rainy evening, the sky darkening quickly as thunder rumbled in the distance. The door creaked open as he stepped inside, the smell of mildew and dust filling his lungs. The mansion was everything he had hoped for, spacious, elegant, but in a state of decay. He spent the first few days exploring the place, fascinated by its dark, ornate furnishings. But something about the mansion didn't feel right. The floors groaned under his footsteps, as if they were reluctant to support his weight. The walls seemed to echo faint, distant noises. A whisper, a tap, a soft shuffle. But when he searched the house, he found no one. On the fourth night, things took a darker turn. Adrian woke to the sound of something scratching. The noise was faint at first, almost imperceptible, but it was coming from beneath the floorboards. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Adrian sat up in bed, his heart pounding. It was the middle of the night, and the storm outside had intensified. He stood up, trying to convince himself it was just the house settling. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. The next morning, he decided to investigate. In the living room, a large, ornate rug covered part of the floor. When he lifted it, he saw a trap door, old and rusted, with strange carvings etched into the wood. His curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed a crowbar from the shed and pried open the door. A stench hit him like a wall, overwhelming in its intensity. It smelled of rot, decay, and something worse, something that twisted in his gut and made his skin crawl. The hole beneath was pitch black, far deeper than the space it should have been. Scratch. It was closer now. Adrian didn't know why he didn't turn and run. Maybe it was the thought of whatever was down there. Maybe it was his need to uncover the truth. With trembling hands, he lowered himself into the hole, using a flashlight to cut through the darkness. As he descended into the basement, the walls felt suffocating. The air was thick, damp. His heartbeat echoed in the confined space. The flashlight flickered, casting long shadows over the walls. Then, he saw it. The creature was hiding in the far corner of the room. It was hunched, its long limbs bent at unnatural angles. Its body was covered in patches of mottled gray skin, sagging and loose in places. But it was the face, if it could be called a face, that made Adrian freeze in place. Its eyes were wide, too wide. Black, empty sockets that seemed to follow him. Its mouth was an endless stretch of jagged teeth like a broken mask. And its skin was peeling in places, revealing raw, pink flesh beneath. The creature did not blink. It did not move. It just stared. Then, with a sickening noise, it began to crawl. Its limbs jerked as it pulled itself forward with unnatural speed. Every movement felt wrong, like it was out of sync with the world around it, as if its very body was not meant to exist. The stench of decay grew worse the closer it got, a thick, rancid air that filled his lungs and made his stomach churn. Adrian took a step back, but the creature was faster. Its head tilted to the side, and it let out a low, guttural growl that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "Help me," it whispered, its voice thick and wet. Adrian's mind screamed at him to run, but his feet felt frozen to the floor. The creature's fingers, long and sharp, scratched at the ground as it neared him, dragging itself like a parasite. He could hear its breath, ragged and wet, as it crawled forward with terrifying speed. Without thinking, he bolted. He scrambled up the ladder, his hands slipping on the wet wood, but he didn't stop. The moment he was out of the hole, he slammed the trapdoor shut with a deafening bang, his heart pounding in his chest. But that wasn't the end. Adrian couldn't leave the house. Every time he tried to pack his things and walk out the front door, the wind howled louder, the walls shook, and the creature's whispers followed him, always just behind him. He would hear the scratching again, feel its presence lurking in the corners of the house, waiting. It wasn't trapped beneath the floorboards. It was waiting for him to let it out again.